Good morning, Dan and Amy. Andy McCabe, he gone. No, he's not losing his pension. It has been misreported in any number of moribund D.C. press corps outlets. He's not losing his pension. He lost some of the premium benefits that he would have gotten had he not been terminated, but that's what happens when you get fired for cause. Too bad, so sad. Molly Hemingway on Fox over the weekend summed it up quite nicely.
Andrew McCabe was under investigation before Trump was even taking office, that the Office of Professional Ethics found that he was in need of being fired. Yes, there are a lot of other issues. I mean, he was clearly involved in quite a few leaks during the Trump administration, and I think Trump takes that quite personally. But this is separate from that. This is about the FBI's career personnel in the Office of Inspector General and Office of Professional Responsibility saying this guy should be fired.
Yeah, and that recommendation to Sessions, and Sessions executed the recommendation. Simple as that.
And
but
Congressman Luis Gutierrez already took to Twitter to offer him a job. Andrew McCabe, call me. I'm serious. We have to stand up to bullies like real Donald Trump.
So he wants McCabe to help him do
Pack
real
up his
estate
office?
closings in Puerto Rico? Okay, fine. Here's the thing. This gets a little bit more complicated because of McCabe's statement in defense of his reputation. The OIG investigation is focused on information I chose to share with a reporter through my public affairs officer and a legal counselor. As deputy director, I was one of only a few who had the authority to do that. Not a secret. Took place over several days, and others, including the director, were aware of the interaction with the reporter. Well, that's a problem because including the director is a reference to Director Jim Comey, who testified thusly in questioning by Senator Chuck Grassley before a Senate committee.
You've got 10.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Question 2 on relatively related. Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No.
Well, they both can't be telling the truth. And I believe lying to the FBI is a crime. So should there be a criminal referral? Don't just think that I'm whistling past the graveyard. George Washington law professor Jonathan Turley over the weekend with Michael Smerconish on CNN.
Everyone that I know of speaks highly of Horowitz, that he's viewed as completely apolitical. And this office, as you note, is insulated like a Sherman tank from any type of outside forces. What's fascinating about the way this is unfolded is not its outcome. I said when we first heard of the report and the recommendation that I thought it was a given that he would be fired. It would be very surprising for Sessions to turn down this type of rare recommendation from the career staff. After all, he followed a recommendation of the career staff to recuse himself, and I think rightly so. What is going to recuse himself going to create an issue going forward is whether there will be a criminal referral. You know, Michael Flynn was indicted for making a false statement to investigators. Now, it's true that they were looking at him for other crimes as well. But there will be some that will argue, why would you indict Michael Flynn, but a deputy FBI director is just worried about his pension, not prison?
Seems like a good question. Let's put it to our friend Ron Hosko, who is a former FBI assistant director and now president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. Ron, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
I'm happy to be with you.
So what about what Professor Turley had to say? Does McCabe have some potential criminal exposure here? Should he? Or Comey? Somebody's not telling the truth.
Well, I think in the case of Andy McCabe, very likely not. Typically, what happens in these internal investigations, this one run by the Inspector General, you are, as an employee, you're very often compelled to answer the questions because the inquiry is regarded as an administrative inquiry. It's not a criminal inquiry. If the supposition at the beginning was this is criminal, then he would have gotten a different advice of rights that sound very much like the Miranda warnings. And it could be that under that circumstance, the deputy director would have refused to answer the questions until he had an attorney and maybe just flat out refused. But typically what happens in these lesser serious allegations, and I would put this in that category, is it's regarded as an administrative inquiry. You're compelled to answer the questions at the risk of being fired. And so those responses that you give cannot generally be used against you in a criminal proceeding. So I think it makes it very much harder to consider this in the criminal realm. I think, and there's a clear distinction with Mike Flynn and others, because as you're filling out documents for a government background, as you're talking to FBI investigators in a criminal inquiry, it's very clear what that's about. That is not administrative. That is a criminal investigation. And you are at immediate risk of violating Section 1001 and potentially face other criminal exposure if you lie in that circumstance.
Well, right, but you could initiate a criminal inquiry. And let's also remember Jim Comey, we know, leaked documents to his Columbia law buddy after he left the FBI, documents that were the property of the FBI, not really Jim Comey's to leak. So is it beyond the pale to consider a criminal inquiry?
I think it will be considered largely on the basis of his testimony on Capitol Hill. So if he is answering a congressional inquiry that is clear on a particular point, and he deliberately, intentionally gives a false statement, then I think you could see a referral for prosecution, consideration of prosecution, and an investigation would occur. I think that is within the realm of consideration. Sure.
All right. I'm starting with a basic question, but in your mind, what did McCabe allegedly do or not do to get fired by Attorney General Jeff Sessions?
Well, it sounds as though the essential allegation is that the deputy director instructed, allowed, supported two subordinates, one of them being this Lisa Page, and the other one being the FBI's media representative, lead media representative, the former assistant director, in talking to the Wall Street Journal and giving essentially background information on the Clinton Foundation investigation. There were reports that McCabe had stonewalled, had gotten in front of that investigation and slowed it or stopped it. And it sounds as though the briefing was to dispute that in fact McCabe had told the New York office and perhaps others move forward on the investigation. And so, typically speaking, and you've heard FBI spokespersons say this ad infinitum, that the FBI doesn't comment on pending matters. And so this would be an exception to that. I think it is good policy for the FBI not to comment, particularly on criminal investigations. As we know, the FBI does comment on active terrorism investigations, occasionally on other investigations broadly, but on criminal investigations, they try to stay largely silent because there's a process behind it. It's often grand jury going on, and so this would be an exception. I know in my own case as an executive in the organization, I would comment at an indictment press conference or a conviction press conference, but I was not meeting with the press to talk about ongoing investigations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So another former FBI assistant director, Jim Kallstrom, was on with Maria Bartiromo over the weekend, and he basically said, look, he thinks this thing was senior leadership of the FBI, John Brennan over at CIA, the unmasking that was going on by Susan Rice and or Samantha Power in the Obama administration. He thinks that basically you have senior level Obama administration officials combined with intelligence and law enforcement officials that conspire to prop Hillary Clinton up and have attempted to manufacture this collusion argument against Donald Trump sans evidence. I mean, he really is making a pretty serious charge about collaboration from the previous presidential administration with senior level officials at both CIA and FBI to weaponize them politically. What do you say to that?
Well, I think the undoing of that argument comes with what I saw as Comey's July 5th press conference discussing Hillary Clinton's various sins related to the server and her emails. Yes, he did not recommend moving forward with an indictment of Hillary Clinton, but it was extraordinary. And in my estimation, Comey lit her on fire. Everybody who was listening to that press conference thought he was walking toward an indictment recommendation, and he didn't. But the language still told a tale about Hillary Clinton that was very damaging to her campaign.
Yeah, but that's when he but that's when he manufactured the intent standard that's not found in the statute to clear her, basically.
I hear you on that, and I don't disagree. But I'm saying, did it go to help Hillary or hurt Hillary?
Well, not being indicted helped her.
Forward to October, and Comey sends the letter over to Congress that says we have to reopen this investigation. Oh, by the way, a recommendation made to him by Peter Strzok, who is at the center of a related controversy. Again, did it go to help Hillary or to hurt Hillary? So I think some of the logic of Jim Comey as a big Hillary Clinton supporter and part of the deep state against Trump comes undone when you look at some very overt acts by Jim Comey and by others.
Although, now, just to follow up, John Brennan tweeted over the weekend. I mean, this guy is remarkable. The former CIA director said in his tweet, when the full extent of your venality, moral turpitude, and political corruption becomes known, you will take your rightful place as a disgraced demagogue in the dustbin of history. You may scapegoat Andy McCabe, but you will not destroy America. America will triumph over you. John Brennan directing that tweet toward President Trump. This is a guy who's, a dispassionate intelligence professional scapegoating Andy McCabe. The recommendation came from inside the House. What the hell is he talking about?
Well, it did come from inside the House. The curious part, in my estimation, look, I have been a part of internal investigations in the FBI. I've been involved in helping others in the adjudication of allegations against them. As an executive, I was part of making recommendations that people be fired for lack of candor. That is a clearly established, well-known violation that agents know this can get you fired. That being said, I know from time to time, because I've seen it firsthand, that the Office of Professional Responsibility can be wrong. The investigations can sometimes get it wrong. I hope for Andy that, and I believe that this Inspector General's office is apolitical and is professional. So I am looking forward to reading the specifics of the allegations and how Andy allegedly lied, mischaracterized, dissembled, however you want to characterize. But if it's there, everybody knows you are eligible to be fired because of it.
In your time at the FBI, have you crossed paths with Andy McCabe? Are you guys friends?
We are friendly. Andy is not my inner circle. He was the assistant director of counterterrorism when I was running the criminal division. And so we were at morning meetings together every day. And then our worlds would head off in different directions. His terror and mine, the other part of what the FBI did. So we certainly worked together to some extent. I did not ever work for him. And, Andy certainly has some detractors both inside and outside the FBI. I will tell you this, though. He is a smart, very capable man. He, in my estimation, was always a patriot. He did become part of that machine and help drive that machine that helped keep America safe. Worked long hours, tireless, capable, smart, and in that way, I thought did great things for his division and for the American people. That doesn't change the fact that if you lie, you're subject to termination.
All right. He is Ron Hosko, former FBI Assistant Director, now President of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. Ron, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate your insights.
Good talking to you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.